Variety, Center's Director Ryan Coogler is executive producing. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Elysian Park, we have a fender bender on the right lane of the 110 northbound at the 5. A little bit slow from Academy Road, nothing too drastic to affect your drive. In Linwood, just keep an eye out for some debris reported in lanes on the 710 northbound connected to the 105 west, as well as in Long Beach, 91 eastbound before Cherry Avenue. We have debris reported in the center lane. CHP is currently running a traffic brake to clear it off to the shoulder.
The laughs keep coming when Bert Kreischer hits Fantasy Springs Resort Casino May 22nd. Big energy, big comedy, one wild night. Get tickets now at FantasySpringsResort.com. That's FantasySpringsResort.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team has brought a national championship to Los Angeles. UCLA capped a marvelous season Sunday in Phoenix with a dominant 79-51 win over South Carolina. First ever national title for the UCLA women's basketball program in the NCAA era. Women's basketball became a varsity sport in the NCAA in 1982. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists for Gabriela Jaquez. UCLA finishes the season at 37-1. After losing to Texas in November, the Bruins won 31 straight games. Sunday's win gives UCLA its first national championship in basketball since the men's team won it all in 1995. The Lakers may have to play the first round of the NBA playoffs without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Doncic hurt his hamstring again. He'll be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks. Reeves is out 4 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique muscle. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, black voices, black power.
The heat is on.
On the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected. Stay informed. Stay loud.
Stand up!
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour, 2 conversations. It's Monday, so we'll kick off hour 2 in dialogue with Dr. Cornel West, as per usual. On the B side of hour 2, why Trump's Department of Justice refuses to rule out a Second Amendment right to nuclear weapons. Shira Lauren Feldman, Senior Director of Constitutional Litigation at Brady, will explain that on the backside of Hour 2. In our third hour, 2 more conversations. Up first,
if you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. Get your kicks on Route 66. It winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Get your kicks on Route 66.
it's the smooth song stylings of Nat King Cole, Route 66. There is a new exhibit at the National Museum of Transportation called Roads, Rivers, Rooms, and Reels, which celebrates the 100th anniversary of the historic Route 66. 100 years, can you believe it? Route 66 helped create a new kind of road trip lifestyle that Americans, including black folk, had not experienced heretofore. We will talk about that role that black folk played, curating this new level of culture for the nation on this 100th anniversary of Route 66. We'll do that on the top side of Hour 3. On the B side of Hour 3, a conversation with contributing editor to Car and Driver and author of the Picture Car Confidential column, Jamie Kitman, about America's renewed interest in electric vehicles as these gas prices continue to go up and up and up. But we commence today's show talking politics and more with our regular contributor, Tim Golden, professor, philosopher, and legal analyst. Tim, how are you today, sir? Good to have you back.
I'm just fine, Tavis Smiley. Thank you so much for having me. It is great to be with you on this Monday morning.
It is good to have you here.
On this Monday.
No, I appreciate it. No, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good.
Yes.
Let me start with this. There's so many things to get to in this hour. I think because yesterday was Easter, I want to frame this properly. Let me start with a clip from Raphael Warnock. Since yesterday was Easter, we all know Raphael as a senator from Georgia. We also know him as the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, which, as we all know, was once co-pastored by Dr. King and his father, Daddy King. I don't need to explain this. Just listen to Raphael Warnock tell you what he believes Donald Trump needs.
Do you pray for the president?
Oh, absolutely. He needs a lot of prayer. And
what do you pray for? What do you ask God for?
Well, I pray in as much as he has influence and power over people I care about. I affirm his humanity as I affirm the humanity of anybody and everybody. But part of that prayer is about accountability. I have to be honest about what he's doing. His kind of unabashed, unvarnished bigotry, the cruelty that he is unleashing on American streets through his version of ICE, those things have to be condemned. And so for me, prayer and prophetic speech, which holds power accountable, those two things go hand in hand. I am not about to be the chaplain blessing that which is ungodly and unjust.
That's Raphael Warnock, senator of Georgia, pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, saying that what Donald Trump needs more than anything else is prayer. Indeed, he does. And that's what Raphael Warnock's, the Reverend Dr. Senator Raphael Warnock's take was yesterday on Easter about Donald J. Trump. In case you haven't heard by now, and I'm sure you have, it's everywhere. On Easter, here's what Donald Trump tweeted. Warning to those of you who have sensitive ears, turn your radio down. Talking now to my mama in Indiana and everybody else. Turn your radios down. Here's your warning. In 5, 4, 3, 2, thank you. I quote from Donald Trump. One word I have to delete, or you'll get it anyway. It's Donald Trump on True Social on Easter. On Easter. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight. I'm cleaning that up for radio so I don't get fined by the FCC, although I've actually raised this question with the FCC. If we're quoting the president, do we get fined? If the president's dropping the F-bomb and we're quoting the president of the United States, does the FCC fine us? I can't imagine why they would. The FCC run by Brendan Carr, he's in Mr. Trump's pocket. So if I'm actually quoting the president over the public airwaves, do I get fined for that? But I ain't going to do it anyway because I don't talk that way. But the president says in his post, open the effing straight, you crazy bastards. That I can say. Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. And then he says, and I ain't making this up, praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. We talk all the time about his bullying and his intimidating. But did he actually say that? Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. So Raphael Warnock sees it one way. Donald Trump cares not that it's Easter, that we are celebrating the resurrection of that first century Palestinian Jew named Jesus. It matters not to Donald Trump, and this is what he pushes out on Easter Sunday. I'm done for now, at least with that. I'll let Tim Golden respond to that and more when we come forward. Just getting started on Tavis Smiley.
Can we just talk? Tavis Smiley.
You've heard me say it before, how we talk to one another matters. Earlier this year, we launched our first cohort, and I'm grateful to those who leaned in early and helped to shape the work. Now I'm inviting you to join me for a new live seminar, The Practice of Dialogue, Becoming a More Effective Communicator. This is a small group experience designed to help you strengthen how you communicate in your work, your relationships, and your everyday life. Space is limited to keep the experience personal and interactive. So if you're ready to take your communication to the next level, now is the time to focus on the skills that make conversations meaningful. The new 4-week cohort begins Monday, May 4th, and there's a nice discount for early bird registrants. Visit TavisTalks.com to learn more and reserve your place today. That's TavisTalks.com, because better conversations don't just happen, we practice them.
From Lamert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us, not because he failed, but because he was winning. Winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. But right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Progressive knows you could have easily taken the freeway, but you took the scenic route to see a waterfall and an oddly busy boiled peanut stand. Discovering the unexpected is exactly why you bought an RV, so protect it with a bundle from Progressive. Because although you may be 3 hours behind schedule, you're 6 jars of jam richer and possibly enrolled in a butter-churning workshop. Switch to Progressive and protect your RV, boat, or motorcycle by bundling with your home or auto insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Indeed presents hires you can't afford to get wrong, like a staff accountant at the height of tax season.
Congrats. Looks like the company owes, $50 in taxes. How about that?
That seems low. Why only 50?
Why do you care so much? It's not your money.
This is a job for sponsored jobs. This is what happens when you don't sponsor your job on Indeed. Next time, get matched with quality candidates with Indeed sponsored jobs. Visit Indeed.com/hire now and sponsor your job today.
More honesty than you can handle.
More empowerment than you can imagine.
You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
All right, Tim, I see my mother and everybody else who has sensitive ears have turned the radios back up now so they can hear you, even though I didn't want them to hear me. All right, so I don't even know where to start. I'm just going to say go.
Well, Tavis, I think there is a profound subtext in that social media post. 22 years ago, our friend and colleague and friend of your show, Dr. Cornel West, penned a masterful text, Democracy Matters. Mm-hmm. And in that text, in Chapter 5, which I believe was titled The Crisis of Christian Identity in America, he wrote extensively about two types of Christianity. One that Senator Warnock referenced is prophetic Christianity. That's right. And that's the speaking of truth to power in love and in the interest of justice. The Black prophetic tradition, of course, comes out of that brand of Christianity. But the other kind of Christianity that Dr. West referenced in Democracy Matters in Chapter 5 of that book is Constantinian Christianity.
Yeah, that's right.
And it is the Constantinian Christian that misappropriates the gospel of Jesus Christ in the interest of political and military conquest and power. And so when President Trump sends out that message, I think he's intentional about doing it on Easter. I think a major part of that message is a message of white Christian nationalism that is anti-Islamic, because to invoke an Islamic phrase in praise of God after a profane expression of coercion in the midst of it's not even a veiled threat. It's an open threat to do harm to a sovereign country because they won't bend to your will. That is saying, the subtext of that message is, my country is better than yours, my religion is better than yours, my God is better than yours. And when I discovered that the president had sent that message out yesterday, the first thing I thought of was a Constantinian brand of white Christian nationalism that is fundamentally anti-Islamic and in some ways anti-Semitic, and that is just interested in power for American whites. It is the Dred Scott undertone of that tweet in conjunction with a problematic brand of Constantinian Christianity. That's the message that comes through loud and clear for me, Tavis. And as a matter of national security, I'm wondering how many dormant terrorist cells in the United States have been reawakened because that was so offensive, and how many more terrorists are now recruited to oppose America because of the sentiment expressed in that social media message.
To your latter point, I think daily of the damage that is to come, what is to rain down on us in the years and months and years to come, because of what Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are doing in real time. They have no idea and no interest, frankly, in what they are teeing up, as it were, that we're going to deal with in the years to come. I just put a pin in that for now, but I concur with Tim's latter point. The couple of things you said earlier I want to come back to right quick. First of all, I mentioned Raphael Warnock. You mentioned Raphael Warnock, and you mentioned you mentioned Raphael Warnock's brand of study, as a matter of fact. And I want to just shout out the name James Cone. You can't mention Raphael Warnock without mentioning James Cone. And so I want to just mention the name James Cone just because I want to say it. And I want to just acknowledge the role that he played in whatever Raphael got out of his class, whatever that was. I just want to acknowledge James Cone. That said, you mentioned anti-Semitic, and I'm so glad you used that phrase because we have seen over the last number of months, you see where I'm going with this already, Tim. We've seen over the last number of months Donald Trump go after Harvard and many other institutions of higher learning for allegedly, but Columbia comes to mind, there are others, he's gone after and made them pay, some of them pay dearly, for engaging in what his administration would label anti-Semitic practices. If this post from Donald Trump yesterday is not the quintessential definition of anti-Semitic, as you suggested earlier, Tim, I don't know what is. So irony is not a strong enough word. But when you think about, again, what they have been doing to other institutions, hiding under the umbrella, hiding behind under the guise of going after them for engaging in anti-Semitic behavior, what is this, Tim Golden? What is this?
That's right. Listen, Tavis, may we never forget Charlottesville, where Trump supporters, who Trump acknowledged were good people, because he said they were good people on both sides.
That's right.
Trump supporters marched through Charlottesville carrying tiki torches, saying Jews would not replace us. And it's incredible to me that some Protestant theologies already have a theology that has replaced Jews. It's called replacement theology. So you don't want Jews to replace you, but it's okay for you to replace them. And these are the people who the president said in his first term were fine people, because he said there were fine people on both sides. And yet you go after certain institutions because you say they're anti-Semitic, and yet you call open anti-Semitic chants coming from people who you characterized as fine people. So I'm trying to figure out where the consistency is in this kind of doctrine, but there isn't any. And Tavis, I'll keep saying this over and over again. Any analysis of President Trump has to begin in his second term with the idea, with the reality that he is a convicted felon. He cares nothing about law. He cares nothing about morality. Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump. He cares about power. He cares about consolidating power for himself. And if that means he can appropriate or misappropriate Christian ideas in the interest of his own quest for power, that's what he will do. He is, as Dr. West would say, the personification of a Constantinian Christian.
Yeah. To Donald Trump's comment that there were good people on both sides, Donald Trump wants to have it both ways, and we're not letting it go down like that. If you're going to go after people for allegedly engaging in anti-Semitic behavior, then you got to be held accountable for your anti-Semitism, and that's exactly what's at the heart of this True Social post. Let me just push a little further here. To your point about Dr. West, who we'll talk to in about 35, 40 minutes from now, top of the second hour, as we do every Monday and Thursday. Can't wait to get his read on this, given that Tim Golden has invoked his text, Democracy Matters. Speaking of Constantinian Christians, I think every time Donald Trump does something like this, which happens far too frequently, I think of when, and I'm not naive in saying this, and I ain't stuck on stupid. I'm awake, I'm alert, I'm aware of what I'm saying. But I think, Tim, every time he does something like this, when anybody on the religious right is going to chin check him. Now, if Donald Trump can push out a statement like this on Easter Sunday, and none of the folk on the Christian right, the religious right who support him, have an issue with this, nobody's got a problem with this. Nobody sees an issue with this. Nobody sees the anti-Semitism in it. Nobody sees him on the holiest day on the Christian calendar. Nobody on the religious right, the Christian right, sees this. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing. Again, I ain't naive. It's like waiting for a bunch of black conservatives to chin check Donald Trump. No matter what he says or does about black folk, ain't none of them Negroes woke up yet. I ain't heard a prominent black conservative yet, Byron Donald on down, chin check Donald Trump about anything that he's done or said with regard to black folk since Trump 2.0 started. And so I don't expect that anybody on the right, I don't expect that Franklin Graham or anybody else is going to say anything about this, but we need to just acknowledge that yesterday this was an absolute insult to every Christian, that on the holiest day of the year, Donald Trump would push something out like this. All I hear, though, is silence. The silence is deafening on the Christian right. I yield to Tim Golden.
Indeed, Tavis, the silence is deafening, and part of the reason that the silence is so deafening is because the people on the Christian right are themselves Constantinian. And they welcome the misappropriation of the gospel of Jesus Christ for the consolidation of political power and avarice and outright injustice, because it serves white people. That's why you had so many Christians justifying chattel slavery. It's the same playbook. It just continues in a different iteration through different mouths, but through similar political agendas. And the people on the far right are Constantinian Christians themselves. See, because the historical Constantine cared very little about a genuine conversion of his soul and cared more about consolidating power in the Holy Roman Empire. That's what he cared about.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to be honest, the silence from the people on the far right comes from the fact that they have the same spirit as Trump. Now, they may not articulate it with the same brazenness or in the same manner, but as you referenced Pete Hegseth, when you put yesterday's tweet in conjunction with the foul appropriation or misappropriation of Old Testament in Pete Hegseth's prayers at the Defense Department, you have Constantinian Christianity at its best. And whenever the state adopts religion in that way, Justice Thurgood Marshall once said that when religion and government come together, government becomes confused and religion becomes corrupted.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yep. So Donald Trump pushes out this statement yesterday, this post on Truth Social. Again, in case you have just tuned in, I repeat, turn your radios down again, right quick. I repeat again, in case you've just tuned in. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. 3 exclamation points. Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. All caps, just watch, exclamation point. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. That's what he posted on Truth Social. Then he talks to ABC News and essentially says, this is a quote, "We're blowing up the whole country if no deal in Iran is reached in 48 hours. So we are inside of 48 hours right now, and Donald Trump has said if no deal is reached within this 48-hour period, we are blowing up the whole country. You heard him say the other night in his speech, we're going to take them back to the Stone Age. So this rhetoric is mind-boggling. No, it's not mind-boggling. That's too strong a word. It's typical Donald Trump. I get it. It's bloviating. It's bluster. And yet the bloviating and the bluster can turn to a whole bunch of bombs being dropped pretty quickly and blowing up the whole country in the next 48 hours if no deal on Iran is reached. Now, having said that, there are countries all over the Middle East who are engaging right now in some backdoor negotiating, trying to see if they can't get at least a 45-day ceasefire. That's what I'm being told this morning. That's what we're reading today. That there are countries who are trying to get at least a 45-day ceasefire agreed to, so that all this doesn't happen in the next 48 hours. But again, the fact that Donald Trump could be so whatever as to push this out on Easter, and again, you got Raphael Warnock saying, I'm praying for the president. He needs a whole lot of prayer. So when we come forward, we'll talk about we'll take another step here. So Donald Trump's comment notwithstanding, what are we looking at in the next 48 hours? How do we process our way through the next 48 hours given the threat that he has made, number one? I haven't gotten yet to Tim as a legal analyst, a philosopher and professor, all that. I haven't gotten to his take on the fallout of the hearing, the oral arguments last week on birthright citizenship and what he makes of that into the future. I haven't gotten yet to the official firing of Pam Bondi and what that means for DOJ moving forward. So there's more stuff to get to. And there's breaking news today. Speaking of that Supreme Court, now they have cleared the way for the dismissal of the conviction against Steve Bannon, convicted for failing to comply with a congressional subpoena related to the investigation of January 6th. You all recall that Steve Bannon spent some time behind bars, and now the Supreme Court has moved to clear the way for a dismissal. Donald Trump gave immunity to everybody else, and now the Supreme Court is going to dismiss the conviction against Steve Bannon. You can't make this stuff up. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. NASA's Artemis 2 mission is officially on its way to the moon.
Integrity looks like a good burn. We're confirming.
Integrity copies.
The Artemis 2 crew will fly by the lunar surface today. The mission comes to an end on Friday with splashdown off the coast of Southern California. 3 black women, 30-year-old Nafisa Dakri, 26-year-old Devonna Cochran, and 21-year-old Deanjana Cochran were arrested at Miami International Airport after refusing to pay extra baggage fees and boarding a Frontier flight anyway. The incident caused a delay and led to trespassing and resisting arrest charges. And former black models from The Price is Right, including Claudia Jordan, are accusing late host Bob Barker of racism, alleging discriminatory treatment, racial slurs backstage, and limits on black contestants during his tenure. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
We now have eyes on a work zone in Baldwin Park. The 10 Westman off-ramp to Francisquito Avenue will be shut down until 3 p.m. today. And for now, it's already causing some jam-packed delays from Pacific. As we move into Encino, we also have a work zone there. 101 northbound on-ramp from Haskell Avenue shut down until 3 p.m. South Central, also, we still have eyes on that stall, second lane from the left to 110 northbound before Jefferson Boulevard.
The laughs keep coming when Bert Kreischer hits Fantasy Springs Resort Casino May 22nd. Big energy, big comedy, one wild night. Get tickets now at FantasySpringsResort.com. That's FantasySpringsResort.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team has brought a national championship to Los Angeles. UCLA capped a marvelous season Sunday in Phoenix with a dominant 79-51 win over South Carolina. First ever national title for the UCLA women's basketball program in the NCAA era. Women's basketball became a varsity sport in the NCAA in 1982. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists for Gabriela Jaquez. UCLA finishes the season at 37-1. After losing to Texas in November, the Bruins won 31 straight games. Sunday's win gives UCLA its first national championship in basketball since the men's team won it all in 1995. The Lakers may have to play the first round of the NBA playoffs without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Doncic hurt his hamstring again. He'll be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks. Reeves is out 4 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique muscle. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, black voices, black power.
The heat is on.
On the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected. Stay informed. Stay loud.
Stand up.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. At the heart of the Al Wooten Center's mission for good citizenship and academic excellence is a desire to ensure that every student avoids the kind of lifestyle and overcomes the kinds of challenges that led to the murder of Al Wooten Jr. In 1990, founder Myrtle Faye Rumpf opened the center in honor of her son's life. In 2026, they are serving more than 300 students in grades 3 through 12 annually online and on site at their youth center and other sites in the South LA area. The Al Wooten Jr. Youth Center takes a neighborhood approach to the revitalization and empowerment of a community in crisis. The Wooten Center provides free after-school and summer programs to help students in grades 3 through 12 attain grade-level proficiency and promotion, high school graduation, and college and career access and success. The Al Wooten Center focuses on academics, STEM, the arts, and so much more. Join them for an enriching experience that sparks creativity and nurtures young minds. Tap in at wootencenter.org. That's wootencenter.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Tim Golden, professor, philosopher, legal analyst, regular contributor to this program. For that, we are grateful and always thrilled to kick off the first hour with him. Dr. Cornel West coming up top of the second hour. In case you've just tuned in, we've been talking about what Donald Trump posted yesterday on Truth Social, his social media platform on Easter. In case you've just tuned in, we started the hour playing a clip from Senator, Pastor Raphael Warnock out of Georgia, Ebenezer Baptist Church, Dr. King's Church, saying yesterday on ABC News that the president needs prayer, a whole lot of prayer. Indeed, he does, because he posted this yesterday again, in case you've just tuned in. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There'll be nothing like it. Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. That is what he posted yesterday on Easter Sunday. We talked earlier, Tim Golden and I did, about why the right, no naivete here, but why the Christian right, the religious right has been so quiet in the face of all of these comments and actions by the president that demean their faith and our faith, so many of us. And here we are on the holiest day on the Christian calendar with Donald Trump having no regard for that day as to say something like this on that day and to be so anti-Semitic in his expression. While he goes after people that he calls anti-Semites. It's hard to make this stuff up, and it's hard to make the dots connect. As Connie Rice says, not the dots, but the boulders. These ain't even dots. You can just connect the boulders. They're so obvious. But I digress on that. While Tim Golden and I are talking about all of this, here comes breaking news. I read now just a couple paragraphs from the New York Times. The headline, Supreme Court clears the way for dismissal of Bannon conviction. The Supreme Court on Monday agreed to clear the way for the dismissal of the criminal conviction of President Trump's longtime advisor, Stephen K. Bannon. The court's action came in response to a request from the Trump administration, which asked the justices to help wipe out the conviction from Mr. Bannon's record. He already served 4 months in prison as a result of the 22 conviction for contempt of Congress by refusing to testify to the House committee that investigated the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. He'd asked the justices to intervene after an appeals court affirmed his conviction. John Sauer, the Solicitor General, in February subsequently asked the Supreme Court to send the case back to the lower court to be dismissed. The administration told the justices that it had determined in its prosecutorial discretion that dismissal of this criminal case is in the interest of justice. Hold the phone for just 1 second. I'm glad Tim Golden is a lawyer on top of being a philosopher and a professor. Let me read to you that line once again that the Trump administration is using to justify their ask of the Supreme Court to dismiss this case against Steve Bannon, which the court has now cleared the way to do. Here's the language. The Department of Justice determined, I quote, in its prosecutorial discretion that dismissal of this criminal case is in the interest of justice, close quote. That is the same line, Tim Golden, they used when they asked for dismissal of the cases against the officers who were involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor. It is in their judicial, in their prosecutorial discretion that they ask for dismissal of these charges in the interest of justice. That's the same thing they said about the cops, I repeat, involved in the murder of Breonna Taylor. It is the same argument they use now to ask for the charges to be dropped against Steve K. Bannon. How do I square that, Tim Golden?
Well, Tavis, the Greek philosopher, the ancient Greek philosopher Protagoras, a contemporary of Socrates and Plato, once said that in Latin it's translated homo mensura, which means man is the measure, or humanity is the measure of all things. And in making that argument, Protagoras advanced the idea that you and I, two different people, could look at the same thing, see it differently, and both of us could be right. And the problem we have here is that you have two different sides looking at justice, and one side calls it black, the other side calls it white. And the problem with Protagoras' doctrine is that it leads to a moral relativism, where if it's right for me, it's right for everyone. And if it's right for you, it's right for everyone. But Plato and Aristotle saw things differently. They saw that there had to be a universal concept of justice, right? So that you couldn't have two different outcomes and both of them be correct. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think that Steve Bannon's lawyers see him as unjustly treated, never mind the fact that he may have very likely played a role in what happened on January 6th, but claim that the congressional subpoena was wrongly issued because he had executive privilege because of his conversations with the president. Now, Tavis, the courts rejected that. They rejected that argument. He had a trial. A jury convicted him. It's not as though he was put up on trumped-up charges. It's not as though somebody said he committed mortgage fraud and a grand jury dismissed the indictment and they kept going after him, as was the case with Letitia James. It wasn't like that happened. So here we're dealing with a situation in which Steve Bannon had every constitutional safeguard available to every criminal defendant, made every argument he could. A jury convicted him. A federal court of appeals upheld the conviction. And now the prosecutor says, in the interest of justice, you have to dismiss this case. This is not the interest of justice. This is in the interest of a Protagorean relativist understanding of what is just that is colored by politics and by white supremacy.
Let me push a little further on this and raise two other points that Tim may find of interest, and indeed those of you listening across country right now may find of interest. This isn't rocket science. I've said this so many times over the course of my career, and sadly, there are too many examples where I could use this notion or this frame almost daily, I guess. I always ask myself in situations like these, if the protagonist, if the persons at the epicenter of the narrative were black instead of white, how different the outcome might be. Tim sees where I'm going with this, obviously.
Yes.
If a black man, if Steve K. Bannon were black and he had refused to testify in front of a House committee, which found him to be in contempt of Congress, would the Supreme Court of the United States be clearing the way for dismissal of his conviction if he were black? I ask myself these questions all the time. All you got to do is to change the color of the protagonist, change the color of the persons in the narrative, and ask yourself, if they were black instead of white, how would they be treated? Why do I raise that? Because that's how you get to a definition of what is in the interest of justice. Because if they're black and they would be treated differently, then that clearly can't be defined as justice. Let me push it a little further. Do you recall? Forget about the black folk now. Let me go back to the good white folk. I'm talking about good white folk versus good white folk. Do you recall a few days ago when the Clintons, hello, somebody? When the Clintons told Congress, we ain't coming to testify, Mr. Chairman. We're not coming. And they threatened them. And the Clintons overnight did a 180, Bill and Hillary, and what did they do? They showed up. Why did they show up? Because they did not want to be found in contempt of Congress for refusing to testify before a House committee and potentially landing in prison. So forget the black question. If the Clintons, former president, former presidential nominee, former Secretary of State, former United States Senator, former governor, if the Clintons were in front of the Supreme Court right now, after refusing to testify before this committee and were asking for their case to be dismissed, would they get their case dismissed by this court? And they ain't even black. I digress. More with Tim Golden when we come forward.
BET and PBS, the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and NPR, the cover of Jet and the cover of Time. #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list, 20 honorary doctorate degrees, a dozen NAACP Image Awards, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. From talk shows to talk radio, nobody's ever done it better. You like that? This is Tavis Smiley.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go, almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fan favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us. Not because he failed, but because he was winning. Winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. But right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is dedicated to inspiring youth and resilience through storytelling, arts, filmmaking, and enrichment programs for youth and families in under-resourced communities and system-impacted individuals. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free and low-cost arts programs to youth and families from under-resourced communities, both system-impacted youth and those affected by the incarceration of a loved one. 1 in 43 children in America have a parent incarcerated. 70% of those children are expected to end up in prison. Through filmmaking, animation, theater, and writing, they help young people express themselves, build confidence, and imagine new possibilities. Beyond the arts, they offer financial literacy workshops, emergency support, and scholarships. Because thriving takes more than talent, it takes access. To learn more about the impact of Michael Daughters Foundation and how you can be a part of the movement, please visit their website, michaelsdaughterfoundation.com. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Tim Golden. Tim Golden, did my black frame or my Clinton frame make sense to you at all?
Oh, it made perfect sense, Tavis. And the reason why it made perfect sense is because what is happening is not being done in the interest of justice. What Bannon's lawyers should say? We're dismissing this in the interest of political ideology. I could accept that, Tavis, right? But when you use justice as a shield for rank partisan politics, that's what so degrades justice, right? I mean, this isn't done in the interest of justice. This is done in the interest of politics, right? And I've said this before. One of the reasons why justice suffers so much in America is because we have exchanged the notion of right and wrong for the notion of right and left. And because justice is trapped within these ideological extremes, you have a dynamic similar to what Trump is doing with Christianity. Trump is taking the Christian gospel and using it as a cover for his avarice and his unjust foreign policy, and his administration is taking justice, which is the real jewel here, and using that as a cover for their own rank political ideology to justify a non-prosecution against someone who, in the interest of justice, actually deserves to be prosecuted.
Yeah. I stand by that. If you flip the frame from white to black, if the answer is different, that tells you right quick it ain't justice. If you flip
Tavis, if you flip if in this case, as you just did, if you flip the frame from conservative ideological Republican to Democrat, you get a different result, which tells you this isn't about anything happening in the interest of justice. It's about the interest of political ideology.
There's your takeaway for the day. If you flip the frame from white to black and you get a different answer, it ain't justice. If you flip the frame from conservative to liberal or Republican to Democrat, it ain't justice. Tim has made the point, and I'm with him. Our remaining moments with Tim Golden when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Real talent is defined by what people can do, not where they learn to do it. So by stopping at the education section of a resume, you might throw away the perfect hire. You might miss someone who has valuable skills to offer to help your business thrive right now and in the future. Because the truth is this: Skills First Hiring helps you see talent others miss, like more than 70 million stars, skilled through alternative routes. When you let their story unfold, you gain a competitive advantage, because hiring managers who start with skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. See the real person, complete. See what others miss. Hire skills first. Learn why it's a competitive advantage at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Stay informed with 24/7 power outage alerts from LADWP delivered straight to your phone or email when an outage occurs. Get notified when there's a major outage and again when your power is restored. Track up to 3 neighborhoods, like your home, your workplace, even a family member's. Stay connected. Stay informed. Sign up at ladwp.com/outage alert. That's ladwp.com/outage alert. Sign up today at ladwp.com/outage alert. Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
Roger and Tracy saved over $18,400. Cynthia was recovering from a family tragedy and saved over $10,300. If you are drowning in debt, then call Debt Blue. Debt Blue is a professional debt negotiation firm with over 20 years of experience helping people pay back a fraction of what they owe. Learn how to cut your debt up to half or maybe more. Be debt-free in 24 to 48 months, even with bad credit. With an A+ rating from the BBB, you can rest easy knowing Debt Blue is going to deliver guaranteed debt reduction. Debt Blue offers a success guarantee. You pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved. That's right. You save money or it's free. Call now for significant debt relief and a free consultation. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879. You don't have to declare bankruptcy. This program works if you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in debt. Call for your free consultation today. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Tim Golden, professor, philosopher, and legal analyst. We've been talking in this hour about all kind of stuff. Tim, let me give you, I got a couple minutes here, right quick here. Just say a top line of your read of Birthright Citizenship, and then I want to close with a read from you right quick on Pam Bondi's firing. So first, right quick, Birthright Citizenship.
So on Birthright Citizenship, Tavis, I am hoping that the reason the court granted certiorari in this case was to unanimously make a decision that the administration's attempt to end it is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the court could have simply ended the case by denying the opportunity to review it in the first place.
Right.
That would be an affirmation by silence. But I'm hoping that the court is doing now what it did in 1954 with Brown, which is accept the case and hopefully unanimously rule against the administration. We'll see what happens.
That's how it feels, given the questions again that the conservative justices ask of the Solicitor General, and I won't even say ask. They were pressing him. They weren't just asking questions; they were pressing him. So we'll see what that happens.
Yeah.
In 60 seconds here, your take on how much more politicized DOJ is going to be for the reasons that Donald Trump fired Pam Bondi, which is basically, you ain't prosecuting enough of my enemies.
You know, Tavis, I've always said that the law is the last bastion and the last great defender of American democracy, and that seems to be the case. Even Pam Bondi, as much of a sycophant as she was and as much of a buffoon as she made out of herself, the few times she testified before Congress, she even wasn't moving quickly enough for the president. And many people are speculating that Todd Blanche, who is the acting attorney general, will be even more reluctant to go after Trump's enemies. It's interesting that the institutions that we have that Trump has imperiled are in a strange kind of way trying to hold serve against someone who's trying to destroy them.
Yeah.
And I hope that this trend holds up.
I got 90 seconds here left. I see Dr. West on hold. Andy, give me Dr. West right quick. Doc, how are you, sir?
Oh, how you doing now? Salute you and Brother Tim Golden. What a high-quality conversation, but it's always like that with Brother Tim.
We got the next half hour, Doc, to let you unpack some of this stuff, and I thought I'd put you up right quick since I saw you on hold, ready for your conversation. I thought I'd ask you to say a quick word about the way Tim read your Constitution Christianity in the Democracy Matters text, applying it to Donald Trump.
Brother, he read it better than I wrote
it. Well, Dr. West, it is an honor. I have to tell you, some years ago, I think it was 22 years ago when that text was published, I remember being a graduate philosophy student, and I remember reading it, and it completely revolutionized my concepts of philosophical theology and its relation to politics. and my reading of the great black thinkers like James Cone and even all the way back to Henry Highland Garnett. So I want to thank you for giving us that treasure that stays with us to this day. Thank you, Dr. West.
I thank you, my dear brother. I salute you very much so, and God bless you and your precious family, my brother. You stay strong, man.
We're crossing over here from Tim Golden to Cornel West. Tim, thank you, man. I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
Thank you so much. God bless you both.
And Dr. West, stand by. We'll kick off hour 2 with Dr. West. Again, Tim has already set the frame in hour 1 about this book, Democracy Matters, and Constantinian Christians, which Doc wrote about quite eloquently and brilliantly. So we'll get his take on his own text and how Donald Trump fits in that frame, given all the drama of today and yesterday with this post from Donald Trump. And now the Supreme Court is going to let Bannon walk free, and Trump threatening to bomb Iran back into the Stone Ages in the next 48 hours if a deal isn't met. Lord, help us all. Cornel West kicks off hour 2 when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Republican Congressman Mike Lawler says there is only one reason for U.S. ground troops in Iran.
And I think the only purpose that I could see would be to get the enriched uranium.
He spoke on NBC's Meet the Press. The war is now in its 6th week, with the Pentagon reporting over 300 troops injured and 13 killed. Black Good Morning America weekend anchor Janae Norman is leaving the show after ABC chose not to renew her contract. The longtime ABC journalist joined the network as an intern in 2011 and became weekend co-anchor in 2022. And Cardi B is stepping into a new role, serving as a judge for New York City's 2K childcare jingle competition. The contest invites creators to produce an original jingle promoting early childhood education across the city. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In Silver Lake, we have a slight fender bender that has now been pushed to the shoulder, 101 southbound at Silver Lake Boulevard. Still pretty backed up from Melrose Avenue, but it does look like traffic is improving. As we take a look into Long Beach, your right lane is still blocked by that down motorcycle. 710 southbound before the 91. It remains so from Rosecrans Avenue. And in Baldwin Park, the 10 westbound off-ramp to Francisquito Avenue remains shut down for a work zone.
Sing along to all your favorites when multi-Grammy winners Lady A take over Fantasy Springs Resort Casino May 16th for a night of non-stop country hits. Tickets on sale now at FantasySpringsResort.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team has brought a national championship to Los Angeles. UCLA capped a marvelous season Sunday in Phoenix with a dominant 79-51 win over South Carolina. First ever national title for the UCLA women's basketball program in the NCAA era. Women's basketball became a varsity sport in the NCAA in 1982. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists for Gabriela Jaquez. UCLA finishes the season at 37-1. After losing to Texas in November, the Bruins won 31 straight games. Sunday's win gives UCLA its first national championship in basketball since the men's team won it all in 1995. The Lakers may have to play the first round of the NBA playoffs without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Doncic hurt his hamstring again. He'll be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks. Reeves is out 4 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique muscle. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's made my love strong for you. We all need someone to depend on. You can count on me, baby. My love is true. My love is true. My love is true.
Here's the Temptations. My Love is True. Dr. Cornel West, as you know, chooses his walk-on music every Monday and Thursday. And he's going Motown with it today. Hey, Doc, how are you, sir?
Brother Ron Tyson, he's never really got his due, man. He's a great artist. He sounded so good. Eddie Kendricks is great, and he is right alongside Eddie in his own way, man. He co-wrote the song with Otis Williams and Brother Victor Karstoffen. And old Ron Johnson, the drummer for Earth, Wind, and Fire, produced it with Al McKay. Now, McKay wrote some deep songs like Sing a Song, too, though. But the Temptations in 1984 in that incarnation deserve much more attention, man. They for real. They for real, brother.
Yeah. How did this particular track get on your mind and your heart today?
Well, brother, I'm just so tired of dealing with the gangsterism in the White House that's been intensified with the language used yesterday. When you spend too much time with that which is phony and fake, you need something real. You need something for real. And the Temptations of 1984 with Ron Tyson and Otis Williams and the others, they for real, man. They the real thing. That's what keeps us going in the moments of overwhelming fraudulence, overwhelming cowardliness, overwhelming cold-heartedness, and mean-spiritedness. We need something real, man.
Yeah. If you are just tuning into the show today and you are curious as to the language of yesterday that Dr. West is referencing, I'm going to give it to you again for those who may not have heard as of yet. And if you have sensitive ears, I want once again turn your radios down just for 30 seconds here so as not to offend. I said earlier, and I'm still wrestling with this, if the president uses a dirty word, if he drops the F-bomb, and I'm quoting the president of the United States, should his FCC fine me for using a dirty word on the radio? I think not, but I ain't going to go there anyway. I will clean it up a bit, but here's what Donald Trump posted yesterday on Truth Social on Easter. This is the language of yesterday that Dr. West is referencing. Tuesday will be a power plant day and a bridge day all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight. He spells it out, of course. Open the effing straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. So, Doc, since you went there, let me follow you. We'll start out right here. When Trump pushes out that kind of language, on any given Sunday, none of us are surprised. But on Easter Sunday, it was just a bit too much for some people. But how did you read that?
Just read it as being so sacrilegious, man, so thoroughly disrespectful of the holiness of the day of Christians. And then the crickets, the silence that you all were talking about in terms of these right-wing Christians, though, brother, there's a level of civic cowardliness, a level of personal cowardliness among the deeply right-wing Christians that they've been talking about character, they've been talking about integrity, and you get this kind of gutter language from the gangster, and we hear crickets.
Yeah. When you allow, to your point about crickets, when the Christian right, the religious right, allows their president to use this kind of language on Easter and they don't chin check him, what does that say to you about them? We'll come back to him in a second. But what does that say, first and foremost, to you about them, that they will let him get away with this on the most holy day on their calendar? What's it say about them?
Well, it lets you know that there's an idolatry that sits at the very center of their views and their lives. And idolatry is what? It is contentment with the prevailing idols of the day. It is being accommodated and well adjusted to the idols of the day. And what are the idols of the day in the White House? Power, greed, status, proximity to power. Nothing to do with the Christian gospel, nothing to do with love, nothing to do with zeroing in on the least of these, nothing to do with loving everybody, loving your neighbor as yourself. No, not at all. It is the bastardization of the Christian way of life.
The Temptations, My Love is True, is Dr. West's walk-on song today. We're just getting started here with him. More with Dr. Cornel West when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Can we just talk?
Tavis Smiley.
You've heard me say it before, how we talk to one another matters. Earlier this year, we launched our first cohort, and I'm grateful to those who leaned in early and helped to shape the work. Now I'm inviting you to join me for a new live seminar, The Practice of Dialogue, Becoming a More Effective Communicator. This is a small group experience designed to help you strengthen how you communicate in your work, your relationships, and your everyday life. Space is limited to keep the experience personal and interactive. So if you're ready to take your communication to the next level, now is the time to focus on the skills that make conversations meaningful. The new 4-week cohort begins Monday, May 4th, and there's a nice discount for early bird registrants. Visit TavisTalks.com to learn more and reserve your place today. That's TavisTalks.com, because better conversations don't just happen, we practice them.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. The midterm election campaign season is here now. The 2028 presidential election is right around the corner. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. It's all in for 2026 and 2028. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Dr. Cornel West, who was here every Monday and Thursday, top of the second hour, and what a day to have him on. The day after Easter, where we get a chance to unpack what he termed a moment ago, this civic cowardliness that has taken hold in our country. We might call it the devolution of our culture, the decay of our civilization. Any way you frame it, it's hard to imagine that Donald Trump well, maybe not hard to imagine, but it's just it requires some wrestling with what he said yesterday in this True Social post. I want to just give you a chance, Doctor, just to lay into this reference he made in this post. Praise be to Allah. I mean, the whole post is too much. We've already established that, but hone in on Donald Trump using that particular phrase as many people see it as a sort of taunt. I've seen other storylines about the fact that it was some shout out to traders who were betting that he wouldn't use the phrase on Easter. And because he did use the phrase, I'm told that a bunch of traders made a bunch of money yesterday. There's always a money connection. I don't know whether that story is true or not. But whether that story is true or not, Donald Trump used this phrase in this wretched post, praise be to Allah. And what's your read on that, Don?
Well, it's wholesale, disrespectful sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
But the same is true when he says, to God be the glory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know that's disrespectful sarcasm, too. Because when you have this kind of gangster disposition, this thuggish orientation, anytime you use that language, all you're doing is simply lowering and brutalizing a very precious language. When we talk about to God be the glory, we talk about something sacred.
Mm-hmm.
When our Islamic brothers and sisters talk about praise to Allah, when Malcolm X and Naima Coltrane use that language, they're talking about something sacred. And we shouldn't be bastardizing sacred language. And this is true for Judaism, this is true for Buddhism, this is true for Hinduism, it's true for any religious language. You have to recognize that it has a preciousness to people. That never occurs to Trump at all, unfortunately. And we understand that. But again, it's his enablers, it's his facilitators. Where is Vance? Vance went to Mass yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He's Catholic. Where's his language? What's he got to say? Lindsey Graham, what you got to say? I don't know what your denomination is, but you run around talking about God for the last 25 years.
Yeah. I'm only pausing here because I'm wondering where we end up when you have a guy like Donald Trump who can say something like this on Easter, and again, he does not get checked by those on the right, by these Christians who have access to him. And Franklin Graham is quiet as a church mouse. And all the other so-called spiritual leaders around him say nothing about this, while he demonizes and bastardizes, again, the most holy day on their calendar. You wonder where all this leads. You wonder where all this leads, number one. But more to the point, Doc, you wonder, because I'm wondering out loud here on a live radio program, what Donald Trump, here's the question, what would Donald Trump have to do? Since we talking about Easter, when he's hanging on the cross, he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Donald Trump knows exactly what he is doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. And when the right engages in this kind of silence, and I said earlier, this kind of silence on their part is deafening. It makes you ask, it makes you wonder what Donald Trump would have to do. What would he have to say for them to finally speak up, Doc? That's my question, man.
That's a profound question. No, I mean, we basically have a large group of Christians who are trying to convince us that Judas would be the closest disciple of Jesus. Trying to convince us that Pontius Pilate is the one on the cutting edge for truth and justice and love rather than Jesus. Trying to convince us that Bull O'Connor is the one who's really concerned with tenderness and kindness rather than Martin Luther King Jr. It's a world that has been turned so upside down morally and spiritually that it's spiritually bankrupt and shot through of the moral decrepitude we don't have a language for. Now, I noticed, too, that Brother Warnock said he's praying for the president. And you see, nothing wrong with that. We Christians need to pray for everybody. There's no doubt about that. People can change. But even Brother Warnock got to recognize, we're having a wonderful conference with James Cone in the 2 days. And James Cone, as you rightly pointed out, was his thesis advisor. Warnock's my dear brother. I just saw him at the Morehouse graduation this May. And he's my dear brother about that. But to be a Christian is not to be on anybody's plantation. And so even Brother Warnock, he doesn't say anything critical about the head of the Democratic Party plantation. He doesn't critically engage. If they say something off the wall, he don't say nothing either. So in that sense, there is a certain analogy to the crickets on the neo-fascist Republican Party plantation and the neoliberal Democratic Party plantation when you're supposed to be free enough to speak your mind in the name of poor people. I don't care if they're in Gaza. I don't think Warnock said anything about genocide, be they in Iran and Tehran, right across the board. So as much as I love my brother, he has to be responsible and accountable, just like you do, just like I do, just like Trump does.
Since you went there, let me follow you because I wanted to ask you about this anyway, so I'm glad you raised it. When Raphael Warnock, Senator, Pastor Warnock, says that he's praying for Donald Trump because Donald Trump needs a lot of prayer, and I take your point. We all need prayer. Everybody does. But is that at the top of our agenda when it comes to Donald Trump? Is that what we ought to be doing more than anything else? Is praying for him?
No. If you're following Jesus, you're swinging, brother. You're swinging, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good God, man. You swing with the love in the stain of the swing.
Yeah. Now, I asked that question because Jesus did, as we know, for those who know your Bible, Jesus did more than just pray.
Well, when he went in the
That's
temple
right.
to go after those money,
that's right.
Those money changers, it wasn't a praying situation, and it wasn't a Socratic situation either, brother.
That's exactly right. I love Jesus, but I don't want y'all to reduce him to just prayer. He did more than just pray now. And so
and they didn't put him on the cross just because he prayed.
That's
right. No, you absolutely.
That is
absolutely right.
That is exactly right. And so I love Raphael too. But Donald Trump needs a little bit more than prayer, man. He needs to get pushed. And so I thought about that when I heard that clip. I said, okay, Raphael, I'm with you. I'm praying for the president too, but I go on the radio tomorrow. I'm going to do more than pray for him. I'm going to say something else about him beyond just praying for him. But I digress in that regard. It is we find ourselves in a moment right now where everything, I'm going to go back to your word, sacred. I mean, you used that word moments ago. It jumped out at me. It's as if Donald Trump is running an agenda that is animated by a mission to, Doc, you would say he's like a bull in a china shop. Your critique of Larry Summers at Harvard all those years ago. The same can be said of Donald Trump. But it's as if Trump has an agenda to go after everything that is sacred. And yesterday was just beyond the pale. I mean, this post yesterday on Easter for me is just beyond the pale. But it's as if he has a mandate in his mind, his head, his heart, to literally go after everything, to turn upside down, to turn over everything in this country that is sacred, Doc. And I don't want to overuse the word sacred, but you take my point, I think.
Oh, absolutely. But see, part of it is, my brother, is that when you have been a gangster for 45 years, you feel as if you can say anything and get away with it, do anything and get away with it. You got 64 felons count and still free. He's said and done so many things and gotten away with it. Now that he is the president and the most powerful individual in the world with social forces behind him, we don't get any words from high tech. You don't get any words from Wall Street. You don't get any words from major rabbis or priests or ministers or conservative professors, even though I know Brother Robbie George and the others are critical because they got their sense of moral sensibility, but not enough of them on the conservative side. When he gets away with it, he just keeps pushing the line. There is no red line. There is nothing sacred for him other than the stock market and the polls and I hope and pray certain members of his family. I don't know his personal life, so I want to give him some benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I think the other thing that troubles me about what happened yesterday is that it strips if the Christian right in this country stays quiet, stays silent about this, it strips them of their moral authority to say anything else in the days ahead. And that's a dangerous position to put themselves in. I don't want to hear it when you start talking about Hollywood. I don't want to hear it when you start talking about. I don't know what the next issue is going to be. I can tell you right now, I don't want to hear it because you're surrendering right now your moral authority. And let's just be clear: there are in this country too many examples historically of attacks against Christians. There's no question about that. Attacks against their faith, attacks against their practice. There's no doubt about that. But in a moment like this, when you say nothing about this, you have now surrendered your moral authority to say anything in the future, and I don't know that they're processing it in that way, Doc.
I think you're absolutely right, but it's fairly clear, that Trump feels if he can say anything about black people.
Yep.
I mean, show Sister Michelle and Brother Barack as apes, that's sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's spiritually sick. You and I have more critiques of both of them in terms of their policy, but that's just white supremacist sickness. But if he were to say exactly the same thing about Jews as he says about Muslims, exactly the same thing about Catholics that he says about Muslims, everybody knows how sick that is, but he still gets away with it. And in the end, though, brother, we just slide down a slippery slope to what Martin Luther King called spiritual death, Rabbi Heschel called spiritual suicide. Because if you got a Democratic Party can't say one word about genocide, you got Trump, on the other hand, saying anything ugly, brutalizing about anybody. What's left in our leadership other than some remnants? We just got remnants of some voices out on the edges, voices of in the wilderness. That's another reason why KBLS 1580 is so important, though, brother.
I wonder.
No matter how, you know what I mean? We got to keep raising our voices, brother.
Yeah. I wonder whether or not there's any way in your mind, given where we are, and again, every time I say given where we are, I look at myself in the mirror because what I should be saying is given where we are at this moment, because that's going to change between now and tomorrow. Where we are today may not be where we are tomorrow. On Saturday, we weren't where we were on Sunday when Donald Trump put this statement out and got away with it, right? So anyway, back to my point. Given where we are at this moment, I wonder whether or not there's anything to arrest this slide that King and Heschel talked about. King, again, calling it spiritual death. Heschel calling it spiritual suicide. Is there anything to arrest this slide, this going down the rabbit hole, as it were?
We've got to be countervailing forces against this kind of organized greed and weaponized hatred. And we do that by raising our voices, putting our bodies on the line, being part of attempts to organize and mobilize. Precisely the kind of things you do on the radio show, brother. It could be vis-a-vis Con Edison. It could be vis-a-vis Trump. It could be vis-a-vis Democratic Party cowardliness. All forms of it. It's a matter of what is right and what is wrong, what has integrity and what does not have integrity. We don't have purity, but we tilt toward integrity, truth-telling, and justice-seeking no matter what. We ain't on nobody's plantation. We just carrying the cross. That's all.
That's it. Two free black men just doing our part to carry the cross. Somebody said, must Jesus bear the cross alone, and all the world go free?
All the world go free.
No, there's a cross for everyone.
Everyone.
And there is.
And there's a cross.
A cross for me. We got to each bear our cross, and that's all we're trying to do. But every time I see stories like this, and again with Trump, it's far too freaking. But to the point Doc made a moment ago, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, and it's not about beating my chest. I'm just saying that now more than ever, you have to have programs like these. You have to have stations and platforms, not just me, Amy Goodman. There are many out there. But somebody has got to say what they see. Somebody has to say what they see. Somebody's got to speak truth to the powerful and to the powerless. Somebody's got to be about speaking, giving voice to that truth. And if nobody does, then the suffering gets rendered invisible. And so these media outlets that are cutting against the grain, like this one, and the one you're listening to me on right now, wherever you're listening, these media outlets that are cutting against the grain are more necessary and more relevant now than ever, because when Donald Trump does stuff like this and the folk who are impacted by it say nothing, somebody's got to say something. Right. And so that's why we're here. Somebody.
What you're doing, Tavis, is making sure that your love is true. Your love for the people is true. Your love for truth is true. Your love for beauty is true. Your love for your neighbor is true.
That's what the temp said. That's what Doc said. That's what I say. Our love is true. Every Monday and Thursday, Dr. Cornel West, top of the second hour. Doc, I love you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you, brother.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Why does Tavis say, when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Chicago's Black Mayor Brandon Johnson is pushing back against the Housing Authority over its selection of Keith Pettigrew as CEO, raising transparency concerns. Black Board Chairman Matthew Brewer was demoted and has issued a response.
It appears that he's trying to undo the work that this board has done and put us back in a position without a CEO indefinitely so that he can try to put in his own person.
The dispute could delay decisions affecting public housing residents. President Trump warned Iran that its energy infrastructure is at risk as the deadline to open the Strait of Hormuz is here. He says there will be severe consequences without a deal, but suggests one could come today. A White House briefing is set for 1 p.m. Eastern. And actress Gabrielle Union is mourning the loss of her father after a years-long battle with dementia. Union has spoken about watching his memory fade and the emotional toll of caregiving. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Heads up in Mira Loma, we've got a crash there. 60 freeway eastbound past the 15, the right lane's blocked. You're going to be slow back from Milliken. Also in Pico Rivera, stall on the 605 northbound at Whittier Boulevard center dividers where it's at. Traffic stop and go back from Washington Boulevard. And some road work in Pasadena at 210 westbound at Lake. The right lane is shut down until 3:15 p.m. for some construction.
Sing along to all your favorites when multi-Grammy winners Lady A take over Fantasy Springs Resort Casino May 16th for a night of non-stop country hits. Tickets on sale now at FantasySpringsResort.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team has brought a national championship to Los Angeles. UCLA capped a marvelous season Sunday in Phoenix with a dominant 79-51 win over South Carolina. first ever national title for the UCLA women's basketball program in the NCAA era. Women's basketball became a varsity sport in the NCAA in 1982. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists for Gabriela Jaquez. UCLA finishes the season at 37-1. After losing to Texas in November, the Bruins won 31 straight games. Sunday's win gives UCLA its first national championship in basketball since the men's team won it all in 1995. The Lakers may have to play the first round of the NBA playoffs without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Doncic hurt his hamstring again. He'll be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks. Reeves is out 4 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique muscle. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, black voices, black power.
The heat is on
the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected, stay informed, stay loud.
Stand up!
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. These are hard times for housing in America. Too many in our community face barriers to safe housing, behavioral health care, and affirming spaces for healing, particularly those impacted by poverty and stigma or incarceration. Rooted in South LA, Ahmad supports impacted communities through housing, wellness, and leadership development. Ahmad provides culturally responsive, peer-led support from transitional housing and mental health services to leadership development and youth empowerment. They offer safe, affirming houses for youth, transgender women, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Therapy and peer support with a focus on healing trauma in Black communities. HIV prevention and care, free testing, education, and wraparound services for whole person wellness. Standing in the gap with health, housing, and hope. Reach out to Ahmad Institute at 323-569-1610. That's 323-569-1610. Or visit amaad.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
We thank Dr. Cornel West for his powerful insights, and now we push on the backside of this hour to a conversation about why Trump's Department of Justice refuses to rule out a Second Amendment right to nuclear weapons. Shira Lauren Feldman, Senior Director of Constitutional Litigation at Brady, joins us right now. Shira, how are you today? Good to have you on the program.
I'm great, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on with you.
It's my pleasure. All right, let's make the most of the time, the few moments that we do have here. I've sort of teed this up for the audience about, again, this administration. And these days, we were just saying a moment ago, these days, nothing out of this administration surprises us. Certainly nothing out of DOJ surprises us. You probably saw the breaking news that the Solicitor General has asked the Supreme Court to dismiss the charges against Steve Bannon. I'm not asking you to comment on it. I'm just sharing this with the audience for those who have not heard this breaking news. The Supreme Court has, in fact, cleared the way for dismissal of Steve Bannon's conviction for being in contempt of Congress, refusing to testify to that House committee. The Clintons, facing the same thing, decided to show up. And so we asked earlier on this program today, if Steve K. Bannon were black, would the Supreme Court just flip the frame? If he were black, would he be being cleared by the Supreme Court for violating an order to appear before Congress? I think not. And I offered as an example the Clintons. They realized that they were facing being imprisoned if they didn't show up, and so they showed up. So if you flip the flame ideologically or racially, you get a different response, and that's how you know this ain't got nothing to do with justice. But the Solicitor General said to the Supreme Court that in its prosecutorial discretion, I'm quoting now, in its prosecutorial discretion, the dismissal of this criminal case against Mr. Bannon is in the interest of justice. I'll leave that where it is. I raise it only because this Department of Justice has done all kinds of things that most of us cannot imagine. We all know that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, was fired the other day. Todd Blanche, who was once Trump's personal lawyer, is now the acting Attorney General. We'll see if he actually gets the job. But I say all that to say that nothing surprises us these days coming out of this particular Department of Justice. That's my entree for you, Shira, to tell me more about this particular issue of the Second Amendment and nuclear weapons. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm very happy to. And you just mentioned what the Supreme Court just did this morning. So I want to take a step back to talk about the ways that the Supreme Court, the current one, has created the problem that we're facing now, or laid the way for it, so that the Trump DOJ can take these outrageous positions. So just to take a step back for a moment on the Second Amendment, you know, the Second Amendment was ratified in 1791, and for over 200 years after that, no one thought that that meant you had an individual right to have a gun to defend yourself. People thought that it meant that the Second Amendment was to protect arms used for militia service in defense of the state. And then in 2008, the Supreme Court decided a case called District of Columbia v. Heller. And in that case, the court decided for the first time that the Second Amendment does protect an individual right to defend yourself. And it said that the core purpose of the Second Amendment is that self-defense. And then in 2022, the Supreme Court decided another case called New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin. And in Bruin, the court struck down a New York law that required someone to have a special need for a gun before they could obtain a concealed carry permit. But maybe more significantly, the Supreme Court created a whole new constitutional test for the Second Amendment. And that test requires courts to largely ignore the ways that gun violence prevention laws are effective at protecting us today, and to instead look to long ago history, in particular to the late 1700s and 1800s, to decide whether laws today are allowed under the Constitution. And after the Supreme Court made that decision in Bruin, gun extremists started challenging all kinds of gun safety laws. So extremists today are arguing that we should not be able to ban civilians from having assault weapons, which are extremely similar to weapons the military uses in overseas combat. They're highly lethal. The AR-15, for example, which is a classic assault weapon, was built to generate maximum wound effect and to pierce helmets and body armor. Its bullets discharge at around 3 times the velocity of a typical handgun, which means that they hit fast and deep and penetrate into the body, creating severe damage. Extremists have also argued that you shouldn't be able to prevent young teenagers or even children from having handguns or guns at all, and that you shouldn't be able to ban guns in places like churches, playgrounds, and the New York City subway system. Now, even after Bruin, many gun violence prevention laws have survived thanks to the tireless work of state attorneys general, city and county attorneys, gun violence prevention advocates, and President Biden's Department of Justice. But other important laws have been struck down because of this decision. For example, the federal restriction on individuals under 21 buying handguns, which is really important because a disproportionate amount of gun violence, particularly mass shootings, is perpetrated by people aged 18 to 21. Courts have also struck down California's ammunition background check, which prevents people who have become ineligible to have a gun after they bought one from continuing to use it. And New Mexico's waiting period, which is really effective at preventing suicides. So what does all of this have to do with the Trump DOJ and the nuclear weapons?
Hold that thought. I'm watching the clock here. I love the setup. I love the frame. Now I'm going to let you go forward and explain, as you said a moment ago, what this has to do, what all of this has to do with the Second Amendment and the right to nuclear weapons. Her name is Shira Lauren Feldman. She'll unpack that part of the story when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
BET and PBS, the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and NPR, the cover of Jet and the cover of Time. #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list, 20 honorary doctorate degrees, a dozen NAACP Image Awards, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. From talk shows to talk radio, nobody's ever done it better. This is Tavis Smiley.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go, almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us. Not because he failed, but because he was winning. Winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. But right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car clips right on your vid. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. When it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Shira Lauren Lauren Feldman, the Senior Director of Constitutional Litigation at Brady. All right, Shira, my time is running. You've set the foundation nicely, and you posed the question, what does all that backstory have to do with the issue we raised earlier of this Department of Justice under Trump and the Second Amendment right to nuclear weapons? Continue, please.
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit earlier that the Supreme Court, when it made these decisions, said that the purpose of the Second Amendment is self-defense, and specifically that the Second Amendment is supposed to protect lawful use of guns. And so the self-defense has to be lawful self-defense. And that's actually an important distinction because there are scenarios where somebody might claim that they were acting in self-defense, but that's actually not justifiable under the law. There are some really important principles about what makes self-defense lawful. And some of those principles are whether the action was a proportional response to the threat that was presented, whether the threat was really imminent, and whether you attempted to retreat or otherwise avoid the perceived threat. Nuclear weapons are not a proportional response to anything that might happen to an individual. And so part of the problem here is that Trump's DOJ won't rule out nuclear weapons as being protected by the Second Amendment because they are totally ignoring the fact that self-defense has to be lawful to be protected. So when they talk about nuclear weapons, or if they talked about bazookas or grenade launchers or any of the other weapons most of us would agree have no place outside of military combat, they just don't care that these are not weapons that anyone can or should use for individual lawful self-defense, and they're saying as much.
The end result of that, the end result of that is what, Shira?
Well, it reflects the other positions that the Trump DOJ is taking. They don't want states to be able to prohibit people from having assault weapons. They don't want states to be able to prohibit guns in children's parks, as I said. And all of these are common sense gun regulations. But we see that the Trump DOJ, not only do they not want people to be able to protect their residents that way, but they are getting themselves involved in cases that they really have no business in, where states are trying to defend these laws, and the Trump DOJ is coming in and trying to attack them. And that's where we saw something like this filing, where they said that you cannot rule out nuclear weapons.
How firm, I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this, how firm is the legal ground on which they are standing on this particular issue?
I don't think it's firm at all, because as I said before, self-defense has to be lawful. You cannot, for example, go into a room and decide without any basis that somebody is threatening you and pull out an assault weapon and shoot 20 people and say that that was justifiable because you were acting in self-defense. And the Trump administration is just ignoring that principle.
When we come forward in the remaining moments I have with Shira Lauren Feldman, there are a couple of things I want to ask her that I think are relevant to the moment that we find ourselves in. One, I'm always fascinated by the fact that Brady, the organization that she works for as senior director, was founded by a Republican named James Brady. For those who've been around for a while, you know that James Brady was press secretary to then President Ronald Reagan. And so Brady was founded by a Republican, and yet the GOP is consistently the biggest obstacle to reasonable gun control in this country. I wonder what Shira makes of that. And I'm also curious as to how, in her view or in Brady's view, the Republican Party's response after the assassination attempt against Ronald Reagan differs from their response after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Two questions for Shira Lauren Feldman when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Real talent is defined by what people can do, not where they learn to do it. So by stopping at the education section of a resume, you might throw away the perfect hire. You might miss someone who has valuable skills to offer to help your business thrive right now and in the future. Because the truth is this: Skills First Hiring helps you see talent others miss, like more than 70 million stars. skilled through alternative routes. When you let their story unfold, you gain a competitive advantage because hiring managers who start with skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. See the real person, complete. See what others miss. Hire skills first. Learn why it's a competitive advantage at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
Hello, this is Dr. Rosa Milligan calling authors and business owners to register now for Black Writers on Tour plus Business Club AI Expo. Saturday, April 25th, 10 to 4 p.m. at the Carson Event Center.
Learn how to write, publish, and sell your book. Business owners are looking for you now. Let them know where you're at. Call 323-750-3592. Free admission and parking. You heard right, free. Powerful seminar lineup. Go to blackwritersontour.com and register today. 323-750-3592.
Literacy is everybody's business. Black Writers on Tour at the Carson Event Center, Saturday, April 25th, 10 to 4. See you there, 323-750-3592. Visit blackwritersontour.com. Don't you miss it.
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley, the Senior Director of Constitutional Litigation at Brady, Shira Lauren Feldman. I've got 4 minutes left. I think I can do 2 questions in 4 minutes. The first question, Shira, is the fact that Brady, founded, of course, by a Republican, James Brady. I was around then, remember that sad moment well. But the fact that the GOP is consistently the biggest obstacle to reasonable gun control in this gun prevention in this country, you read that how?
I think it reflects the extreme influence and the amount of money that the gun industry has spent to prevent any gun violence prevention from meaningfully happening at and in Congress in this country, and to ensure that Republicans will block it. The gun industry goes far out of its way because it profits them to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if Brady has assessed any difference in the party, the GOP, that is, the party's response after the assassination attempt of President Reagan, wherein James Brady was harmed. Any difference between how Republicans responded to that assassination attempt and the one against Donald Trump? Both obviously involve guns.
I'll just note that in the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, no one in the Republican Party was interested in looking at the gun, right? And the access to the gun as a problem that was inevitably part of that assassination attempt.
Yep. At this point, how does Brady read Donald Trump on guns? And I raise that because I was going to say ebb and flow. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure I'd call it an ebb and a flow. He has gone back and forth. I'll put it that way. He has gone back and forth on gun issues, sometimes to the consternation of gun owners. But what's your read, not just of his administration? We've talked about DOJ. What's your read? What's Brady's read of him at the moment on the issue of guns in America?
Yeah, so the president put out a new budget on Friday, and that budget reflects an extreme view of guns as a plan for the Trump administration overall. They want to legalize something called ghost guns, which are untraceable guns that are perfect for somebody who cannot pass a background check and wants to commit a crime. That's very important to them. They want to allow people, or are already allowing people, to have devices that create short-barreled rifles, which are very dangerous and lethal. And in Dayton, Ohio in 2019, allowed someone to kill 9 people and injure 27 more in 32 seconds. So regardless of the messaging that Trump sometimes goes back and forth on, I think this is ultimately a completely extremist view.
Well, I'm sorry that you say that. It does not surprise me, and I love the truth you told in answer to the question. But that is where we find ourselves in this grim American moment. I digress for now. Shira Lauren Feldman is Senior Director of Constitutional Litigation at Brady. Honored to have had her on the program. Shira, thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. On CNN's State of the Union, Black Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock says he's praying for President Trump, saying he needs a lot of prayer.
I pray in as much as he has influence and power over people I care about. I affirm his humanity as I affirm the humanity of anybody.
The pastor senator says his prayers also focus on accountability, arguing faith should hold those in power responsible for their actions. Tesla is being sued by a black woman from Georgia who says her young son and his father died after becoming trapped inside a burning Tesla. The lawsuit claims witnesses couldn't open the doors as the battery burned following a crash. She's asking for a jury trial. And Pepsi is pulling its sponsorship of London's Wireless Festival after backlash over Kanye West headlining all 3 nights. The move follows criticism from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
We've got a crash in Mira Loma 60 freeway, eastbound connector to the 15. It's partially blocked there. Also, trying to get through Pasadena, some construction. 210 westbound Lake Avenue. The right lane's blocked there until 3:15 p.m. Traffic's a bit slow back from Rosemead Boulevard. Also seeing some slow traffic on the northbound side of the 710 between the 5 and the 10 freeway. Just very slow there. Maybe a little Caltrans work going on there.
Vegas summers start by the pool. Find poolside luxury at Aria, iconic elegance at Bellagio, and vibrant energy at the Cosmopolitan. Relax, sip, and earn with MGM Rewards. Plan your escape today at mgmrewards.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team has brought a national championship to Los Angeles. UCLA capped a marvelous season Sunday in Phoenix with a dominant 79-51 win over South Carolina. First ever national title for the UCLA women's basketball program in the NCAA era. Women's basketball became a varsity sport in the NCAA in 1982. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists for Gabriela Jaquez. UCLA finishes the season at 37-1. After losing to Texas in November, the Bruins won 31 straight games. Sunday's win gives UCLA its first national championship in basketball since the men's team won it all in 1995. The Lakers may have to play the first round of the NBA playoffs without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Doncic hurt his hamstring again. He'll be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks. Reeves is out 4 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique muscle. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready?
Drop it!
Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. Know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
If you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. I get your kicks on Route 66. It winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Get your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City looks mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Want you get hip to this timely tip.
Ain't nobody like him, Nat King Cole with Route 66. We got two conversations in this hour. I'll tell you about that in just a second. On the B side of this hour, a conversation with contributing editor to Car and Driver and author of the Picture Car Confidential column, Jamie Kitman. We'll talk to Jamie about America's renewed interest in electric vehicles as gas prices go up and up and up. And in case you've been listening to today's show, you know that what Donald Trump has in store for Iran in the next 48 hours, if something else don't happen, is going to make these prices go even higher than they already are. I digress on that for now. We commenced this hour in conversation in a moment about Route 66. There's a new exhibit at the National Museum of Transportation called Roads, River, Rooms, and Reels, which celebrates the 100th anniversary of the historic Route 66. Route 66 helped create a new kind of road trip lifestyle that Americans had not as yet experienced. We will talk about the role that black folk in particular played curating this new level of culture for the nation in this hour with a special guest here in just a second. Her name is Katrina Parks, but turn up Nat King Cole one more time.
66. Get your kicks on Route 66. Get your kicks on Route 66.
There you go, Nat King Cole. Katrina Parks, good to have you on the program. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Any excuse to play Nat King Cole, I welcome. So when I saw on the schedule we were going to have you on today, I said, well, I know how I'm starting that hour. We're going to play some Nat King Cole. We're going to squeeze him in. So again, any excuse to play Nat, I'm happy with. So let me start with this. We'll get to some other stuff I want to ask you about in this half hour. But tell me about this new exhibit for starters.
Well, it's called the Route 66 Centennial Traveling Exhibit, and it grew out of my documentary films. I had done a documentary about the Harvey Girls, who were one of the first American female labor forces along the Atchison, Topeka, Santa Fe. They were waitresses. And then as I was interviewing the later Harvey Girls, I realized that some of their lives were then impacted by Route 66, the Mother Road. And I wanted to see if there were ways beyond women working in the typical kind of mom and pop businesses and as waitresses, what we associate with Route 66, which was certainly part of their experience. But I wanted to see if there were other ways in which their lives had been impacted by the Mother Road. And I was not disappointed. There were anthropologists, archaeologists, entrepreneurs, politicians, women working in wartime industries. And that then, so I made this 3-part series for American Public Television, which is still being distributed by them for the centennial of Route 66. And while I was going through, these small towns, I realized there was a need for programming for all ages, that could really draw families in and engage younger audiences with this important history. Mm-hmm. And so we've developed this exhibit. It's 22 panels for each state, and the bottom part of the panel is really geared towards kids with educational activities. They get handed a Route 66 passport book when they go through the exhibit, and they have to look for clues and answer questions and do creative things like drawing. And then the top part of the panel is more geared towards adults and providing context and exploring deeper historical themes in American history.
Let me ask you at the outset of this conversation here, what does this centennial mean? Anyone who's ever traveled across the country knows something, of course, about Route 66. Nat King Cole did an amazing track about it. But movies, books, documentaries, so much have been written and advanced over the years about the Mother Road, as many people called it. But what does it mean for us to be celebrating 100 years of this particular route that did, in fact, change travel for Americans, including African Americans? But what's it mean for us to be at a point now where we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of this route?
I think that's a really great question. And birthdays are, of course, a time of celebration, but I think they're also a great time for reflection. Let's face it. And Route 66, as historian and author Michael Wallace has said, is really a mirror held up to the nation. And so while we see the nation's good tendencies reflected into it, the themes of American entrepreneurship, small towns, community, we also see some of the challenging things that Americans have faced, including segregation. 44 out of 89 counties along Route 66, as Candace Taylor has pointed out and researched, were sundown towns, and that meant that African American travelers were not welcome there after dark. And African American travelers specifically faced all kinds of challenges and danger when traveling in the United States during the Jim Crow era. And so, people had to really travel in a different way. They had to travel prepared. They took water with them, food, toilet paper, all of the necessities, because they weren't sure that they were going to be able to, get service along their journey. And I spoke to many people who talked to me about that, the preparations that were made. You also have to think that we're in a time when cars were not as like what we have today. And so, you may remember or have seen images of like the burlap sack bag that would be on the front of the car to cool the radiator when you were driving through the desert. So it was definitely challenging. And, also people would do things like travel with chauffeurs' caps so that if they were stopped, it was easier to make up a story and say that this car belonged to someone else. They were just this person's chauffeur. That would get less questioning than the idea that, a middle-class Black driver could own their own vehicle and be traveling across the United States. So it was very complicated. I think the thing that was really inspiring to me, and something that I think, we can learn from today, are the stories of these amazing, often female entrepreneurs like Alberta Ellis in Springfield, Missouri, who opened up Alberta's Hotel.
Hold that thought, Katrina. One second. We're going to get to Alberta's Hotel in just a second, I promise. Just watching this clock, and I want to manage this time well and give you a chance to really unpack about this, because there are some amazing stories about some I would call them a few primary Black women whose stories anchor some of the research for this exhibit. So we'll talk about those Black women, starting with Miss Alberta that Katrina mentioned a moment ago, and I see some comments from some listeners about this conversation that I'll share with Katrina Parks as well when we come forward, celebrating the 100th anniversary of Route 66, and particularly the role that Black folk played in that beyond Nat King Cole's great song. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Oklahoma City looks mighty pretty, you'll see. Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Want you get hip to this timely tip when you make that California trip.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Can we just talk?
Tavis Smiley.
You've heard me say it before, how we talk to one another matters. Earlier this year, we launched our first cohort, and I'm grateful to those who leaned in early and helped to shape the work. Now I'm inviting you to join me for a new live seminar, The Practice of Dialogue, Becoming a More Effective Communicator. This is a small group experience designed to help you strengthen how you communicate in your work, your relationships, and your everyday life. Space is limited to keep the experience personal and interactive. So if you're ready to take your communication to the next level, now is the time to focus on the skills that make conversations meaningful. The new 4-week cohort begins Monday, May 4th, and there's a nice discount for early bird registrants. Visit TavisTalks.com to learn more and reserve your place today. That's TavisTalks.com, because better conversations don't just happen, we practice them.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us, not because he failed, but because he was winning. Winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. But right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Katrina Parks, who's director of the series Route 66 Women, The Untold Story of the Mother Road, part of a new exhibit at the National Museum of Transportation. All this is happening because we are now celebrating the 100th anniversary, the centennial of Route 66. And I'm honored to have Katrina Parks on to talk about that, specifically as it relates to some of these primary black women whose stories anchor the research for this exhibit. And you were starting to tell us about Miss Alberta. Katrina, take it away.
Thank you so much. So I had the great privilege of interviewing Alberta's grandchildren, Irv Logan and Elizabeth Calvin, for the documentary series. And they told me about their grandmother who had, experienced danger and segregationist practices along Route 66, traveling from Missouri to Oklahoma to visit her relatives. And so she was inspired while working at the Bell Telephone Company to found a hotel called Alberta's Hotel. I think she converted an old hospital building into this beautiful hotel, and it was a hotel for Black travelers, but really anyone, was welcome to stay there, especially after World War II. You see archival photos of troops that did not want to be separated, staying at the hotel. So there was a group of people from all kinds of backgrounds staying there. And she did much more than start a hotel. She really created a community gathering space. She had a rompus room in the hotel where youth could come. She had a barber shop. She also at one point had a farm a little bit outside of Springfield. And so, during the Depression years, people could stay there who didn't have enough money for a hotel room and be safe. And that was, a real theme in many of the interviews I did. I'm also thinking now of the Threet Filling Station in Luther, Oklahoma, which was the only known Black-owned and operated filling station, and it was positioned between two sundown towns. They are converting the filling station now into a wonderful museum that I think will be open to the public later this year to tell that story. But in a similar way to Alberta's, the Threet Filling Station was, again, a community gathering space. It had a Red Cross station. It had a Greyhound. At one point, there was a Greyhound bus station as well. And the Black baseball leagues would stop there. They had a baseball diamond and play. And it was just a wonderful business. And what drew me to it was that was the woman angle. Elizabeth Threet was a school teacher. She was one of the first African Americans to graduate from Central State University with a master's in Oklahoma. And she really built her career teaching in Luther schools that were first segregated schools, but then she transferred to a new school when things were desegregated. So she did all of that, full-time teacher, and also ran the filling station with her husband, Ulysses. And after he passed away, she kept it going for, I think, at least another 20 years. So those are some of the stories that are part of, my project, part of the films and part of the exhibit. And it's been just a wonderful honor to get to meet these families and to kind of help preserve this history for generations to come.
You mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead, please. Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead. You first. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to throw in a factoid about the Nat King Cole song, which was written by Bobby Troop. It's actually Cindy Troop, his wife, who came up with the "Get Your Kicks on Route 66." What would you call it? Limerick. They were traveling across the country post World War II, and he was thinking about writing this song, and he said something about calling it after another highway, and she turned to him and said, "Get your kicks on Route 66." And she always thought she should get a songwriting credit, but she did not.
To your point, I'm reading a message now from one of our listeners who said, and you and I have already established this in this conversation, but to your point about the kicks part, when Cole recorded that musical travelogue in 1946, as Katrina said earlier, 44 of the 89 counties along Route 66 had sundown restrictions on black citizens. Reading now this comment from one of our listeners. Tavis, even some of the towns mentioned in the song, Joplin, Missouri, Flagstaff, Arizona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino, that is, were places that Cole himself would have been hard-pressed to find welcoming. Even Cole himself would have been hard-pressed to find welcoming for him, as big a star as he was. As for any other lesser-known or unknown and unwary black travelers, the kicks, here's the point I was getting to, Katrina, in this message from a listener. The kicks they were liable to be met with along Route 66 would not be inspiring any blithely upbeat melodies. And so I love the line in the song, but again, for African Americans, the kicks they would have been exposed to are not the kind of kicks that she was talking about when she suggested that line, that limerick for the song. Just wanted to point that out from one of our listeners. Yeah. That said, you mentioned Candace Taylor, who's been a guest on this program heretofore. So we have celebrated her work, know her work, and have talked to her about her work with regard to this particular period. And how black people had to move around the country, even as this mother road was opening up America to so many of us. And she's done some amazing work, as you mentioned earlier, around notions of the Green Book. And I think there's a Green Book section of this exhibit. If I'm wrong about that, correct me. But I wonder if you could say more about the way that black people had to use this Green Book to route themselves on Route 66.
Yeah, I think it was an essential guide, like a AAA guide, but really, as Candace says, geared towards Black people. So you could find a beauty shop, you could find doctors who would serve you, restaurants, hotels. It was a survival guide, is what I would call it. And I totally agree with your listener's comment. And I will say that businesses. It reminded me of another aspect of Alberta's hotel, which was in Springfield. There were these amazing theaters like the Shrine Auditorium, and great artists like Ray Charles, Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers would come play. You also have the Harlem Globetrotters coming through, and they could not stay at most of the hotels in Springfield. So they would stay at Alberta's, and they have an amazing guest book that has different people's signatures. But I think one thing that has really stood out for me in my work is that yes, my project does highlight some people who are more well known, like Dorothea Lange, the great women photographer who traveled documenting families during the Dust Bowl, families of all races who were forced off their lands in Oklahoma and in parts of Texas too, due to an economic crisis and dust storms. John Steinbeck actually looked at her picture, Migrant Mother, and that's why he coined the term the Mother Road. But getting back to this idea that ordinary people do extraordinary things. And that's kind of, I guess that's at the heart of my project, is how ordinary people through like community, entrepreneurship, and education, and also I think through a generosity of spirit, can overcome challenging times.
Mm-hmm.
And we're certainly living through challenging times right now.
No question.
So I think I want to double down on that. And I've learned so much from interviewing, these women over the last, it's been like a quarter of a century journey. And that's kind of what it's left me with, is like feeling inspired, and that realizing that Americans have been through hard times before.
Yep. How would you, and I know this is a big question, you got a few minutes left here. How would you say on the centennial celebration of Route 66 that this Mother Road changed America? It's a big question because I want to give you as much canvas as you need to paint. But for all of us, for black, white, red, brown, yellow, again, this opened up America for so many of us. How did this Route 66 change America?
Well, I go back to its kind of original, the original concept. I mean, it was, most roads are pretty linear, so they go north-south or east-west, but Route 66 goes east-west, but it dips down and goes south too. And so it goes through much of the Southwest. And, part of the idea behind it was to connect some of the poorest counties in the nation. And so it really, it did give, it also, Route 66 passes through over 25 indigenous lands. Mm-hmm. And so for the first time, indigenous women, for example, were from pueblos, were able to sell their art directly to tourists. They didn't have to go through a trading post or a middleman or the Fred Harvey Company. They could deal directly with tourists, and it introduced cash into the economy in a way that it hadn't been before. So it definitely, had a big impact. Of course, like all things, there's the good side, which is, this great entrepreneurial and economic route. It was also a military corridor during World War II. And you had Native American women working at places like the Navajo Ordnance Depot outside of Flagstaff, Arizona. But it also, roads bring disruption too. We all know that. And in terms of segregationist practices, you have many stories of the road following one route initially and bringing that economic gain, for example, into a Latino neighborhood or into a Black neighborhood. But then it would get, when the economic success was there, it would get rerouted. And so it would cut off that economic lifeline to those communities. And a clear case of that is in San Bernardino, California, where that happened. So yeah, I really think Route 66 is a great lens for looking at American history. It's this international symbol that we all love, that stands for the open road and adventure. And when we look a little deeper, I think we find that it's complex, it's challenging, but that's what hooks us. That's what's interesting, and worth exploring further.
I want to close with 2 minutes to go. I want to close where we began this conversation with Route 66, the song, the iconic song from the iconic Nat King Cole. Speaking of iconic, what do we think this song from Nat King Cole did to or for the iconography of this Mother Road, Route 66?
I think, that's a great question, but it brought attention to all of these places, Gallup, New Mexico, Joplin, San Bernardino, that aren't Los Angeles or Chicago, and so in that sense, it really, I think, opened up Americans' eyes to other places, and certainly international travelers who come to Route 66 every year by the thousands, and it's a beloved pop culture symbol on the lines of the Cars movie, I think, in terms of introducing Route 66 internationally.
The exhibit is on display at the National Museum of Transportation through the end of October 27. So you got some time to get there to check it out. Katrina Parks, thank you for your insights. Thank you for directing the series, Route 66 Women, The Untold Story of the Mother Road, and for being one of the brainchilds behind this exhibit. Thank you for your time. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
My pleasure. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Get hip to this timely tip. When you make that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Chicago's Black Mayor Brandon Johnson is pushing back against the Housing Authority over its selection of Keith Pettigrew as CEO, raising transparency concerns. Black Board Chairman Matthew Brewer was demoted and has issued a response.
It appears that he's trying to undo the work that this board has done and put us back in a position without a CEO indefinitely so that he can try to put in his own person.
The dispute could delay decisions affecting public housing residents. President Trump warned Iran that its energy infrastructure is at risk as the deadline to open the Strait of Hormuz is here. He says there will be severe consequences without a deal, but suggests one could come today. A White House briefing is set for 1 p.m. Eastern. And actress Gabrielle Union is mourning the loss of her father after a years-long battle with dementia. Union has spoken about watching his memory fade and the emotional toll of caregiving. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In Norwalk on the 605 southbound before you get to the 5, trying to clear a crash from the carpool lane. It's going to be slow from Whittier Boulevard. In Irwindale on the 210 westbound right at the 605, trying to clear a crash over to the shoulder. Then in the backup 210 west after Irwindale Avenue. We've got a stalled semi. This is going to be blocking the third lane from your left. And in orange on the 5 northbound City Drive off ramp, it's partially blocked with a stall.
Make this summer one to remember at MGM Grand Las Vegas. Lounge by the pool. Catch world-class entertainment, indulge in unforgettable dining, and experience the energy only MGM can deliver. Plan your Vegas escape today at MGMRewards.com.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team has brought a national championship to Los Angeles. UCLA capped a marvelous season Sunday in Phoenix with a dominant 79-51 win over South Carolina. First ever national title for the UCLA women's basketball program in the NCAA era. Women's basketball became a varsity sport in the NCAA in 1982. 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists for Gabriela Jaquez. UCLA finishes the season at 37-1. After losing to Texas in November, the Bruins won 31 straight games. Sunday's win gives UCLA its first national championship in basketball since the men's team won it all in 1995. The Lakers may have to play the first round of the NBA playoffs without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Doncic hurt his hamstring again. He'll be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks. Reeves is out 4 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique muscle. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready?
Drop it!
Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. Know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is connecting you with services and solutions. Domestic violence and family violence is when someone in an intimate or family relationship tries to gain or maintain power and control over another through a wide range of abusive behaviors. Every single act may amount to abuse. Abuse can take on various forms: psychological and emotional, physical and economic, and sexual abuse. The Genesee Center Incorporated is a nationally recognized nonprofit domestic violence prevention and intervention organization, housing women and children from 30 days up to 2 years through emergency and transitional shelters. The Genesee Center also provides support services like mental health counseling, life skills classes, computer training, job referrals, after-school programs for children, field trips, tutoring, and comprehensive direct legal services. If you need help or you'd like to donate or volunteer, call the Genesee Hotline, 1-800-479-7328. That's 1-800-479-7328, or visit genesee.org. Everyone has the right to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
It does indeed. In our last half hour, we welcome Jamie Kitman back to this program, contributing editor to Car and Driver and author of the Picture Car Confidential column. We were just talking with Katrina Parks about the 100th anniversary of Route 66, and I had a chance to play that great Nat King Cole song. But I invited Jamie back on the program to talk about these rising gas prices and what that means for the conversation about electric vehicles now and into the future. Jamie Kitman, good to have you back on. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks, Tavis.
It's good to hear your voice, man. So let me just ask, you going to say something? Go, Jamie. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying, yeah, good to hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, I thought you were going to say something. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me start with a couple of broad questions, and we can narrow as we move through this half hour that we have with each other. How have you processed? What have you been saying? What have you been writing about with regard to these gas prices that are going through the roof, these oil prices? And we talked in our first hour today, as everybody else is in the country, on talk radio and beyond, about Donald Trump and his threat to Iran in the next 48 hours to blow them to smithereens, take them back to the Stone Ages, that nasty Truth Social post he put out with that horrible language on Easter Sunday, no less. But broadly speaking, what have you been saying, writing, how are you processing this rise, this continuing rise in these gas prices, Jamie?
Well, I think they were entirely predictable, and I'm sort of, I don't know whether I'm shocked or disappointed or mad that they didn't account for that, but underscores once again the limits of Donald Trump's interest in the lives of average, ordinary people who have to use their cars to get to work and take care of their families. That said, the ironic part of it all is that, Trump has done everything humanly possible, and some things, bordering on, illegal and unconstitutional, to block the adoption of alternative energies and in particular electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
So having done that, he's just made the best case for an electric car that you can have at present, which is that, you don't have to buy gasoline, so you can save money, even at the prices that now seem low of 2 months ago. It was cheaper to fill up with electricity than gasoline, and now it makes an even stronger case for it. Combined with that, there's a lot of older electric cars that are coming off lease that are now very cheap to buy because they depreciate heavily, in part because newer ones are better, have longer range, but the old ones are perfectly satisfactory. So I think that it's a typical Trump own goal. He achieves the exact opposite of what he sets out to do, and then just blows hard and blows long about whatever he's thinking about that minute, regardless of whether it contradicts what he said yesterday or earlier this afternoon or in the middle of last night.
Yep. There are three or four things you said I want to go back to right quick. Let me start with this. I don't know that I know the answer to this question. Indeed, I don't know the answer, which is why I'm asking Jamie Kitman. We hear all the talk, of course, about Elon Musk and Tesla, his Tesla vehicles. But at the moment in this country, who is the leader in the electric car space?
Well, I would say that Tesla is still the sales leader.
Right.
They had a variety of disappointing results in the last couple years, and he seems like he's moving out of the business. So I'd say through inattention and lack of investment and all his other business interests that distract him, that their position is a lot more tenuous than it was. Stepping back further, you see, looking at the sort of global perspective, you see that the real leaders in the electric car space are the Chinese companies, and that is something that various Western car makers have had to deal with. In that they're if the Chinese come in untariffed and untaxed, they're just going to blow them out of the water, and you've seen that in several countries where, in England, for instance, where they don't have as stiff a tariff, certainly as we do, and as some of the European countries do. The Chinese models, go to the top of their sales charts.
Yeah.
So that is a huge, existential threat to the Western automobile industry, and even to the Japanese and Koreans who make great cars, but aren't quite where the Chinese are in terms of that.
Do the Chinese lead us as Americans in this particular electric vehicle space because of ingenuity and creativity, or do they lead us because of public policy? Put another way, because people like Donald Trump are keeping the lid on EVs.
Well, I think it's a combination, and there's a lot of blame to go around. But first of all, the Chinese invested hundreds of billions, if not a trillion or more dollars, in developing electric vehicles. And they have, at current, every province has its own car company. They have 108 car companies at one recent count that build electric vehicles, not only electric vehicles, but all of them build some electric vehicles. So they've really, their public policy, which it was based on the notion that electric cars were going to win, now is looking pretty shrewd, whereas in the West, particularly in America, what the next quarter results are is all that matters. And so people have a lot of, you could call perverse incentives to delay investment in new technology. So that's one thing. But, because of that, they are, and I recently interviewed the chairman of the Ford Motor Company, Jim Farley, who said that, that they kind of woke up after COVID, when they were finally back allowed to go to China and went to the auto shows, to realize that they were really far behind, and not like a year or two, but several generations, or at least a couple of generations behind them. So can they catch up? That's a question. The Trump administration wants to pretend this is not what is happening around the world, but if you actually speak to the executives privately, as I do, they're basically saying, look, we don't want to get in a fight with this guy who can rain all hell upon us, but so we're just doing it more quietly. People made a lot of the fact that Ford, for instance, has canceled their Lightning pickup truck, the electric F-150, which as a gas car is one of the best-selling cars in America for decades. But the reality was it was too expensive, too heavy, and the technology wasn't good enough. And I think, that realization, while it's kind of embarrassing, is the accurate assessment of where they're at. And so I would suggest that, they're trying to get serious. But I don't think there's been a crisis like this since, at least since the very first energy crisis, where American car makers couldn't make anything that was fuel efficient. Mm-hmm. But, since the beginning of the industry, this is just an epic, wall that they're pushed up against.
Yeah. Speaking of perverse incentives, that's the phrase that Jamie Kitman used a moment ago. Speaking of perverse incentives, when we come forward, I want to ask him whether or not this is what it takes. Since the Chinese are kicking our behinds, as it were, in this electric vehicle space, does it take us going to war with Iran, hence raising oil prices, thus raising gas prices, for us to get serious about the future of EVs, to renew our interest in EVs as the way of the future? That, speaking of, again, perverse incentives, is this what it takes to get us serious about electric vehicles? You're listening to Jamie Kitman on Tavis Smile.
BET and PBS, the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and NPR, the cover of Jet and the cover of Time. #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list, 20 honorary doctorate degrees, a dozen NAACP Image Awards, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. From talk shows to talk radio, nobody's ever done it better. You like that? This is Tavis Smiley.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for and there they go. Almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
58 years ago, a bullet tried to silence a dream. It couldn't. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us. Not because he failed, but because he was winning. Winning the fight for a nation determined to live up to its promise. That fight didn't end then, and it can't end now. California is the most powerful state and the most powerful country on earth. But right now, too many people are being left behind, priced out of their homes, locked out of opportunity, told to wait for justice that's already long overdue. Dr. King didn't wait. He taught us the fierce urgency of now and acted. Now it's up to us to carry that same urgency today. We need leaders who will fight the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. Not someday, now. On this anniversary, let's honor Dr. King the only way that truly counts, by doing the work. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. The midterm election campaign season is here now. The 2028 presidential election is right around the corner. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. It's all in for 2026 and 2028. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Jamie Kitman, contributing editor to Car and Driver, author of the Pit Your Car Confidential column. Pleased to have him on, given that these oil prices, these gas prices are going through the roof. And given the threat that Donald Trump has made against Iran in the next 48 hours, we shall see what happens, whether or not the gas prices that we are paying right now that are far too high go even higher. Hence, a conversation about our renewed interest, or what ought to be our renewed interest in electric vehicles as these gas prices continue to climb. So, Jamie used a great phrase earlier, perverse incentives. Is this what it takes, going into Iran and raising gas prices, for us to get serious in this country about EVs?
You know, I'd like to say yes. This should push us back over the top, which is really where we were just a few short years ago. Electric car sales were booming, and plans were being made to make it even easier to own electric cars with more charging stations, tax credits, and the like. And Trump, of course, did a complete handbrake turn, a 180 out of that, and it definitely affected sales. To me, the incredible thing is that it wasn't long ago it wasn't long ago when people were, concerned about climate change, which is a fact, and that was going to be a good idea. And then, of course, after the September 11th, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center, there was this, mounting sense that people really, needed to think twice about a system where we were so dependent on foreign oil, and it opened us up to all these things that, stem not just from buying people's oil, but from, occupying their countries and meddling in their governments and things like that to keep the supply of oil going. But as in 2001, where the response was like, let's put giant SUVs on super sale and make sure everybody has one because they're so scared, rather than dealing with the energy issue, which took, many, many more years to be dealt with, 20 years or something like that. We're doing exactly the opposite of what we ought to do. That said, I think that, as I was saying earlier, in the way of these things where Trump manages to, get it wrong so often, I think that high gas prices make, the case for switching to electric cars and hybrids even more strongly than the tax credits did.
We shall see if it actually means anything. And I think that's the question I want to ask Jimmy when we come forward in our remaining moments with him. So we're in this situation. Again, he made the point that Donald Trump has really sort of blocked all efforts at alternative energies. He's blocked efforts at building more electric vehicles, even as we fall farther and farther behind the Chinese. But now, given these prices in gas, this is the best case for why we ought to be, again, more serious about EVs into the future. I guess the ultimate question is whether or not that's going to be the end result. And even beyond Donald Trump, he ain't going to be there forever. Are we ever going to get serious about this in our country? Again, as the Chinese keep putting more distance between them, between them and us. That's the exit question for Jamie Kitman when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
Real talent is defined by what people can do, not where they learn to do it. So by stopping at the education section of a resume, you might throw away the perfect hire. You might miss someone who has valuable skills to offer to help your business thrive right now and in the future. Because the truth is this: Skills First Hiring helps you see talent others miss, like more than 70 million stars, skilled through alternative routes. When you let their story unfold, you gain a competitive advantage, Because hiring managers who start with skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. See the real person. Complete. See what others miss. Hire skills first. Learn why it's a competitive advantage at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Hey, LA. Tax money is our money. Let's decide how to spend it together. We deserve investments that actually make our neighborhoods safe, like affordable housing, good jobs, fire prevention and protection, and community support programs. How can we make that happen? Join Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and the Movement for Black Lives for the People's Budget Assembly on April 16th. Together, we'll discuss solutions to problems we're facing and make a plan with fellow Angelinos for a city that works for the people. There'll be food, childcare, and great conversation. It's time to demand a budget that puts the people first. Join us on April 16th at 7 p.m. at BLMLA's Center for Black Power and make your voice heard before the Assembly through the People's Budget Survey. Register today at peoplesbudgetla.com. We'll see you there.
What if your rooftop could earn you money every year? With LADWP's Solar Rooftops program, you can get solar panels installed and maintained on your home at no cost and earn up to $900 a year. That's up to $18,000 over 20 years. There are no upfront costs, no credit checks, and no annual fees. Plus, you'll help power Los Angeles with clean local solar energy and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Make your rooftop work for you. Apply today at ladwp.com/solar rooftops.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. 10 Toes In serves as a mentorship and domestic violence prevention program. They support, educate, and empower couples during and after incarceration. They assist male returning citizens to re-enter society successfully and to help them maintain a healthy relationship with their romantic partner. They offer a mentorship support group for formerly incarcerated men. 10 Toes In teaches its Intimate Relationships 101 curriculum at male prisons throughout the state of California. They host sister support group meetings for women who are intimately involved with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated men. 10 Toes In is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To access their services or make a donation, please visit them online at 10toesin.org or find them on Facebook or Instagram. They are healing lives through relationships. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Correspondent Jamie Kitman for the next 3 minutes here. So, Jamie, again, we've been talking this half hour about how Donald Trump unwittingly has made the best case for electric vehicles, given these gas prices that continue to climb higher and higher. And yet, I wonder, when all is said and done, and these gas prices at some point come back down, whether or not we'll find ourselves in the same place where we are today, which is that the Chinese keep putting more distance between us and them on EVs.
Yeah, I mean, it seems inevitable that the United States, if it hasn't already, is soon to lose its primacy in the world of car making. I think that the idea that the United States would have a coherent long-term strategy and stick to it has really taken quite a beating in recent decades. That said, I think it remains inevitable, and I just think it's ironic that Trump starts referring to the United States as having achieved like third world status and being blaming the Democrats, of course, but actually, one of the things that really messed up car makers throughout COVID and beyond was the lack of chip production here. And then Biden, directed a lot of federal money towards that, and it's helped a lot and will help further to the extent that Trump doesn't kill it. I really think that I'm not particularly optimistic about the United States, recovering some sort of leadership position anytime soon. Ford has talked about building Chinese cars in its American factories, and maybe the way that the Chinese basically took advantage of the West by making anybody who wanted to sell cars in China enter into a joint venture with the Chinese companies and the government, and then learning everything that they knew, and then investing their own money to, sort of step forward, and then kind of inviting everybody to leave. Maybe we'll get to do the same thing back to them. But, I don't. The appetite of the Congress to do anything that might be unpopular. I mean, you think about Trump. I mean, of all the horrible things that he's done and all the things he's done to destroy manufacturing in the United States and our relations with countries around the world, and to pollute the earth and all that stuff, the idea that that he's now doing this to our auto industry is just it's really hard to believe.
No, it is.
Have any faith that anything that they're doing has any particular purpose or any happy ending is a stretch.
Finally, here a new poll from Pew Research finds that about 1/3 of U.S. car shoppers would consider buying an EV right about now, given these high gas prices. Democratic and urban residents are the most likely to consider EVs. The poll released by the Pew Research Center found that an even higher number of Americans, 44%, said they would consider buying hybrid vehicles. Still more than half of poll respondents, 53%, said they would not consider purchasing an EV. So we still got a ways to go. The numbers are climbing, but not nowhere near plurality. I digress on that note. Jamie Kitman, thanks for your insights. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
You bet. Thanks, Tavis.
Just like that, 3 hours gone. Back here tomorrow to do it all over again. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. On CNN's State of the Union, Black Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock says he's praying for President Trump, saying he needs a lot of prayer.
I pray in as much as he has influence and power over people I care about. I affirm his humanity as I affirm the humanity of anybody.
The pastor senator says his prayers also focus on accountability, arguing faith should hold those in power